This is a workflow teardown where I'll be showing you a completed client's workflow and which parts of it work, don't work, and what they could do to make it better. So I'm here with the team at Diverse Force today, looking through their executive search workflow. So my first question is, what is the desired outcome of this workflow? How would you like to have it work if it was perfect?
If it was perfect, it would allow our team to move more efficiently through the implementation of executive search and also advance the work against deadlines. It would do a better job of tracking deadlines to keep the team on task.
Okay. And so I guess I haven't really done an executive search before. What overall needs to get done in terms of the executive search?
There's a few different aspects. For our search, there's a lot of documents that have to be created. So that is a process that is within the implementation of a search. In addition to that, there are other tasks that push the search forward in terms of engaging with candidates, engaging with the client, managing some of the artifacts that we create. So the tasks are related to the different team members, and the team is typically 3 or 4 people. All of us have to work in synchrony, executing the different steps of the executive search. So that goes from starting with the client through moving through getting approval on various parameters for the search, through moving through finding and screening candidates, and then moving the candidates through the final process where they get assessed and interviewed by the client. Does that help?
Okay, yes it does, thank you. Okay, and are there any current frictions or pain points that you're struggling with?
Yes. I think what I find happening is that the team is, I say we're doing ClickUp instead of using ClickUp to manage our processes. So I really envision, I think corporately we envision that the team would live in ClickUp to execute their work, but we don't find that happening. We find that ClickUp is really someplace they go to record what they're doing. And I think we're getting closer to that vision, but I also know that if we could figure out a way, the pain point to me is how to advance the work. Right now, people just say, I did this. And what I really want to happen is if there's a way to find out how what you have done then pushes the work forward so the next thing can happen, that would be perfect. So if I do my task, I need the execution of my task to not only signal to management that the task is done, but also to push it forward so that the next event in the sequence that's required for the search, that person gets notified, do it, make that happen.
Okay, cool, great. Okay,
so
awesome.
kind of like passing the baton.
Yeah. Okay, that sounds good. All right, so having a look at this executive search, we've got 2 folders here. We've got docs and tasks. So I'm just going to have a quick look through your task names here. I'm not going to understand a lot of this because it's not my area, but hopefully I can get the general gist. So are each one of these tasks a doc that needs to be created essentially?
Yes.
Okay, great. And then tasks, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, cool. Okay, now this is a template, so it'll be used for each individual job. Maybe can I ask, how does it get assigned? When the template is used, does the manager just go through and assign out each task?
Yes, and you'll notice if you look at the staff accountability column over there on the right, actually the manager doesn't do it. It's sent over to be done manually by our VA. So depending on who the team is that's assigned, that person would know, this person is the client manager and this person is the senior talent solutions partner and this person is the talent solutions partner. So the VA can just very quickly say, for this search, sort by the client manager and assign whoever's been assigned.
Yeah, perfect. That's brilliant. And for the viewer who's watching, this is a really great way of doing this. So by just sorting here, how much do I want to edit?
Actually, I filter.
Okay. Yeah, filtering might be easier. For now, we'll just try the sort. So we can just go through and say, hey, look, all of these need to be assigned to one person. Great, done. And then go on to the next group. So that's really clever. Okay, so I'm assuming then that there are multiple teams that could be doing this. How
Correct.
many different teams are there?
Well, our teams are interchangeable. So right now there's 6 people, but
Okay.
it's not necessarily the same 2 or 3 people
Mm,
working together.
right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking of like a pod structure where you could have a template saved for each team, but okay, no,
Yes.
none of that. Okay, cool. So these will all be assigned. Maybe for these ones, I'll just kind of chuck myself on just to remind myself. And then we've got a start date, due date. That will be mapped based on when you start the template. So those will all be in the future. Great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the key thing I'm looking for there is that everyone will have their tasks assigned to them with a due date, which means they'll show up on the home view and also any kind of personal views that they create. So that's really good. Okay, how to, we've got Loom videos, wonderful. Notes. I assume that's just kind of notes about how to get the task done.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Yep, great. Is there any particular reason why you'd use the notes field rather than description?
Because it's viewable in that view.
Yeah, nice. Okay. Content URL. Is that something that I'll populate as they create the things?
Correct. We have some standard documents, and so when the list is created, the VA puts in the templated documents, just drops the links in there. So again, as a way for our team to just come work out of ClickUp, we're Google based. So rather than going to Google, you could come to ClickUp and start your work.
Okay, great. And I assume that's perhaps less useful in the client tasks list.
Correct. Yeah.
But you've got to add it at the folder level so it can show up in this view, which makes total sense.
Yeah.
Cool. Updated editable template URL.
Mm-hmm.
So is that the blank document?
Right. So the content URL is literally just a Google document. The editable template is a graphic. It's client ready, but it's editable.
Yeah.
And then the final one is just a PDF.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Okay. Great. And so you've got multiple views here. So this is the search view. So is that kind of like the overall view, it looks like?
It's just the list view, right?
Yeah, okay, yeah. And then we've got a board view for all due dates. Okay, we're seeing where things are coming up. These are all overdue. That's just because I didn't remap the dates when I made this template. So that would be usually spread out. That's fine. Okay, and my due date says me mode. Perfect. So I'm only seeing my own tasks. Great. Cool.
Gantt, I'm not using. That's if I can ever figure out how to use it.
Right. Yeah.
It's an aspirational view.
Yeah. Fair. Let's just have a look at how it loads. So because you've got all these due dates kind of nicely spaced out, it'll actually look rather good. And we're currently sorting by start date, which is brilliant because it means it'll appear in this kind of waterfall fashion. So you can always just go to the top to see what's happening first. So overall, I think this looks good. It is long just because there's a lot of tasks, but I could totally imagine coming in here and moving things around to say, okay, this has been delayed, let's move it along. The one thing that isn't in existence currently is the dependencies between tasks. So when you move one, it'll move others. Dependencies create a lot of extra complexity. So I generally suggest that people don't use them unless they need them. So if you're doing fine without them, I'd say just keep on as you are.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Well, and we had dependencies, but the challenge was the team was not that consistent with updating. And the other challenge was sometimes, with the dependency, our process is not so structured that if one task changes by 3 days, the following task also changes by 3 days. And so that became kind of a double effort because I would move the first task and then I have to go to the second one and move it back because that one shouldn't go out 3 days. That should go out 5 or maybe move only 1. So that I took those off. It wasn't as helpful as I wished it was.
Yeah, fair.
So.
Cool, okay. And then documents here, these are just notes, and then kind of some, it looks like useful resources basically.
Correct, yeah.
Cool.
Again, with the intention that people would work within the tool, we put some of things that they would use at their desk in carrying out the process as documents that they can access.
Yeah. The only thing I'm thinking is because we've got these on the template, they will be replicated multiple times. So you'll end up with multiple copies of these. So when we make changes to them, if they're saved in the template, they'll update new instances of the template, but not old ones. There could be a case made for putting these documents at the space level so that there's only one copy of them. That being said, people would need to know where to go to find them. They could miss them. One thing I think could be useful, and I often do with my clients, is I'll say, hey, here are a list of all the views that you need to favorite, and have them go through and go to where that view is and then add it as a favorite so that they have it permanently in their either their favorite section, which can be down here or up here, depending on your preference. Just so that way they always have quick access to it. Because if we were to go to Docs Home right now, I'm imagining we'd see just a whole bunch of duplicates of that. Which can work, but it's just definitely a place where issues could happen. So yeah, we've got it kind of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 a number of times. Okay, so that could potentially be edited.
Okay,
and diving into the individual lists, it looks like you mostly work from the folder view. Oh, there's a couple here. Okay, yeah, makes sense. Cool. And let's see, are there any other custom fields we haven't looked at yet? Finally, URL and owner. Okay, cool. Do they get used much?
You know what? I'm just realizing that final URL should be a column right next to the editable version.
Right, yeah.
I don't know how I missed that, but anyway, yeah, it should be right there. Exactly.
Cool, okay.
The owner does not. The owner, I think I was using the owner when I was trying to work with the automations, but the automations didn't really work because of the reason that our teams are interchangeable, right? That I couldn't figure out the way to make that work. So I think that I'm not using owner.
Yeah, okay, cool. Just a heads up, I put this here, but that's not going to save because this view is protected, which is great. It's great to have public views protected. It just means that you might need to change that again later.
Okay.
Cool. Okay. And so can you tell me about the zones? Are these like phases in the project, or?
Exactly. That's exactly what they are. They're phases of the project. So after a certain milestone, we move to the next zone. So those are really more process driven, and we use those internally. It's also a visual for managers to kind of understand, where are we in a search? Because we're, at this point we've got 3 teams, but we envision having many more. So if I was a manager, I could very quickly look and see we're at whatever the zone is.
Yeah, great.
For this search.
Yeah. Nice. Okay. All right. So those are the basic elements of structure, and they're looking really good. It looks like you've got this well-structured, well thought out. Okay, so let's start thinking about the friction points. So the key one was people aren't being notified when it's their turn to do a task. So it seems like a lot of these tasks need to be done sequentially, that a lot of them can't start until the one before it is done. So the typical way that would be done would be with dependencies. So one thing we can do, we talked earlier about dependencies, moving things around being a pain. If we jump into ClickUp's and go to dependencies, cool. So what we could do is just turn that off. And then even if we have dependencies, tasks will still only move individually, rather than bumping other tasks along. So it'd be the same as not having dependencies in terms of rescheduling. So it's currently on in recruiting. Okay, so let's turn that off. Because then what we can do is if we create dependencies, we can have an automation that says, basically there's this idea of unblocking. When all the tasks that a task is dependent on, it will be unblocked. That will create a notification which people could, as long as they've got their notification settings set up right, could be notified about. So within notification settings, I believe, dependency unblocked. So we'll get everyone to turn that on. So they'll get a notification when their task has been unblocked. We could make that a little bit more obvious by attaching an automation to it. So if we go up to automations up here, I'm pretty sure we can use unblocked as a, task unblocked as a trigger. And then the typical one to try and notify one is to add a comment, and then at mention, okay, at mention assigned, and say like, this task is ready to go. So all it's going to do is generate a notification, which they're already getting if they have that set up right. It's just a catch-all in case they don't have it set up right. You can't turn off notifications for being at mentioned. You can just not check your notifications, so that's a separate issue. But this way it just makes it more likely that people will be notified.
And where is, okay, so when the task is unblocked, you're adding a comment to the task that was unblocked.
Correct, yeah. All ClickUp automations happen on the task that they're triggered on. It's not very good at kind of finding another task to take an action on. Yeah. The other one we mentioned was people not living in ClickUp to execute their work, which is a really common thing I see. So the way that I think about it or understand it, which may or may not be true for all teams, is that when you implement new software, people are slow to change, and it's new, people have to learn it. Oftentimes what people have is a whole lifetime of figuring out how to get work done in some way. It might be writing lists on a piece of paper or however they manage their work. And that doesn't go away when you implement ClickUp. So people already have some way of managing their work outside of ClickUp. And so therefore they don't necessarily need ClickUp because they're doing it some other way. And if they don't need it, then they'll tend to use it only as much as they have to, which tends to be for the sake of reporting, for letting other people know what is done. A couple of ways to kind of help with that. So what I ultimately would like for my clients is we set it up well enough that people can trust it. And that's huge. They have to know that if I use ClickUp and stop doing my other thing, that it needs to work for me. So that's a really big deal. A few things I do sometimes to help with that is I'll create a space called something like personal folders or personal lists, and give everyone their own folder or list, and work doesn't go there. It's just their playground space, so they can test out things in ClickUp to see how ClickUp works, mess around, learn the tool, and also if they have pick up dry cleaning or personal tasks that they need to do whilst at work, they can put them in there. What I'm trying to aim to do is create a sense of psychological safety where people get more familiar, more comfortable with the tool, and they have a space that's private to just them. And I would make it private so they're the only person who can actually access that list. So all about trying to get people familiar with the platform and feeling safe, trusting it. Trusting that if they put tasks in there, it's going to work. Part of that might be having really good personal views. So these here are public views. You can use the home view to look at, okay, what are my tasks that are coming up that are due soon? I tend to turn lineup off. It's a ClickUp unless we're as a team using it. So now I've got all my tasks in here. And for a lot of people that could work fine, they might quite like that. The calendar function is neat, but if you can drag and drop things into the calendar, but that will reschedule them. It'll change their due dates, and oftentimes that's not functional. So I'll often close that. Personally, I find this a little bit unflexible because you can't actually edit it. So what I often show people to do is at perhaps the everything level, or if they're only working within one space, just the top level that contains all of your tasks. Get them to create a view that you actually already have my due dates. So essentially this. So it's filtering to just their tasks. And you've already set it up right, actually. So the way to do that is not just to turn on me mode, but to have it default to me mode. Yeah, which you've got on, which is great. This could be a board view, could be a list view, whatever they prefer. And then you could also have them make it private, just so that it's out of everyone's way. So that way each person has a view that they are in control of. They can group it, filter it, sort it the way that works for them. And because it's probably at the everything level, they trust that all the tasks assigned to them are going to show up there because they've got it on that me mode. They probably need a little bit of training just to make sure that they know that if they filter out tasks, then tasks won't appear. That could potentially be an issue. So if they want to have a filtered view, they might have two personal views. I often have one for like tasks that I need to do today, and then tasks that are coming up in the future. So as long as they have enough views that cover all of their tasks, so that they can trust they're going to see everything. Another trick that I use is that I like to make ClickUp the only way that people can get certain information. So if they need to know what they need to do, they have to go into ClickUp to find out. So it's kind of an integral part of the workflow, so that they can't just kind of avoid using it. Because then once people use it for a while, they think, okay, I know how I find this piece of information out. I'm comfortable with finding it in ClickUp, and then ClickUp, like, oh, okay, I'm already using it for that. I might as well use it for my task management. So as much as possible, I try to make ClickUp not an extra add-on, but an integral part of the workflow. And my assumption is that over time that will kind of ease people into just using it for everything.
And when you say information, are you thinking documents?
Could be that, or it could just be like, what work do I need to get done today, next week?
Got it. Okay.
But it can be just anything, yeah.
Okay.
I think that might be it in terms of things I can say that are helpful. Overall, I think you've got this really well structured. You've put thought in this, it's clear, it's got good structure to it. I think with just that fix to having people be notified when it's their turn to do tasks, this looks like a pretty functional workflow to me.
Awesome. And that's very helpful.
Okay.
Because I love the automations. I just couldn't figure out how to use, because I think they're tremendous. But that's probably the best application I can think of for us, because that's really the place that I feel like people divert off of ClickUp to, say, hey, go do this or look here.
Yeah,
and that,
right.
I feel like that's an unnecessary step. I'd rather have it all live here. So that's perfect.
Yeah, it's really easy to end up with project management in Slack or Teams where everyone's saying, hey, please do this, rather than looking at what do I have next to do.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's very helpful. I don't really have any other questions. One of the things, like Jess mentioned, the thing that I struggle with is the templates, right? Because we use a template, and to her point, we have some boards that are being built because we're changing our model. And I don't think that there is an easy way to do that, because one of the things I've been using recently is duplicating tasks, right? So I'll update the update version, and then whatever I updated there, I duplicate it backwards to the ones that are in flight. Is there some other way? Because I'm trying to catch up, right? Like, we changed our model. Those two searches were in flight. We figured it out on this search, but I want to move it backwards. I don't know a good way to move things backwards, which happens to us all the time.
Yeah.
So any suggestion along there would be really helpful, because that's another challenge.
Yeah. So when we save a template, it kind of updates the template version, which is then used in new instances. Right. Unfortunately, I don't know of any way to kind of update old uses of it other than what you're already doing, which is just manually patch. Sorry.
Okay, that's all I could think of, and it's working. It's a little bit time consuming, but it's working.
Yeah. Okay,
Cool. All right.
Awesome. Well, if you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, we can just end there.
Jess, any questions from you? I don't have any other ones.
I just had one question, which in my reformatting, I was debating reorganizing it so that the zones showed in a different format. And it was mainly because we are creating two boards, one for the actual recruiting team and one for the client manager. And so just thinking about how to clean this up a little bit.
I've just noticed there you've got different statuses for each. So this one's to do in process complete. Love that. Love really simple ones, and because they're tasks that make sense. And then these ones are more complex because I imagine there's a reasonable amount of double checking before we finalize documents. So that makes sense.
Yeah. And really the documents are all, well, not all, but primarily externally facing. So we have to track, are they, has the client seen them, all that.
So if you hit the client template.
Yeah.
In this one, you'll notice that each one of the phases is a status, right? And so I was thinking of transitioning our other ones to show this way, just so that once we are progressed to another kind of phase, because for us, orange is like pre-client, green is starting, yellow is just getting going, and it's like until completion. As of right now, we just have that kind of column showing, whereas although this is a different template, once we check them off, they'll sort of process of in the sequential process sort of just like shorten so that we can see what's remaining in that phase, I guess. Just a different way of looking at the information. I want to get your thoughts on the difference between the two. I know it's hard to compare, being that it's not exactly the same exact template.
Yes, there might be a change in how you're thinking about tasks. My general rule of thumb, which doesn't apply in 100% of cases, but I think it's pretty decent, is I avoid using statuses for any sort of categorization. So like for this client task list, you wouldn't move it through these statuses. You kind of just go from here straight to complete, because ultimately, I'm assuming, and I might be wrong about this, but like something that's in finances will never be in any of these other statuses. Is that right?
That is right, yes.
Okay. What can be done though, which I think maybe will achieve what you're wanting anyway, is even if you were to use these tasks, but have a custom field similar to what you have here, it might have different names or extra options. What we can do here is instead of sorting by it, we can instead group by it. So currently we're grouping by status, which kind of creates this whole view, but sometimes that's not very useful. It can be more useful to say, let's group it by, what was it, zone?
Zone.
And that will look fairly similar to how we had the other one. But
That's
you still
exactly
get the
right.
benefit of moving these through a process.
Perfect. So that's the difference in the visibility piece that I was speaking to, Monica, to help kind of do it. Yeah, that's super helpful, Justin. Thank you.
Yeah. And we can probably just make that view like a separate view, right? Because I see what you're saying. Make it a separate view, Jess, and you can just pull it out, and that's how you need to see it. And then if not, over there.
Yeah, because you're doing it with an extra piece of information, you can have one view that's organized by status and then one view that's organized by zone at the same time without having to, you know, and some people have one preference, some people have another preference. You can do both at the same time. And that's awesome.
Okay. Solving world peace. Thank you. We're done. Love it.
Awesome.
Cool. Okay. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. And like I say, that I think that right there, Jess, and the whole automation piece, I'm charged. I love it. I love it. And glad to hear that. Glad to hear that we've covered some of the things that you think are important to cover, because we pride ourselves on that, right, Jess?
So we weren't as bad as we thought, Justin, right? Were we okay?
We were ready to get bashed. We were ready to get bashed. Like, what is this?
We were ready for our whole board to be demolished.
No, I think you've done a good job.
Good to hear. Thank you so much. All right. Good.
Thank you so much, Justin. It was a pleasure going through this with you. I definitely learned a lot, even in this short time.
Me too.
I'm glad. Before you go, if you'd like a teardown of one of your workflows, click on the link in the video description to put down your name. Now, if you want to learn how to design workflows like this yourself, I put together a course to teach all of my core underlying principles, design elements, and also give you a set of pre-built templates. You can find the link to that in the video description, or go to workmanagement.tools/course. And finally, if you'd just like me to do it for you, I currently have several spots available for consulting and projects. Again, the link to more details is in the video description. Go well, and I'll see you soon.